You hear me properly? That's good. Is this on? Is this on? This is far. Oh yeah, I hear the soundboard. There you go. There you go. There you go. Hopefully this I don't understand. Can you hear me fine? Oof. How about now? Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I hope everybody's having a great Valentine's. Enjoy themselves. Lots of chocolate, lots of fun, movies, etc., etc. Oh my god, I'm so hot. I was cold, now I'm hot. It's always like that. You should go away. Away. Awesome. The sun is gonna be off for sure. I apologize. I changed my setup and guess everything is messed up. Yeah, I forgot to fix this as well. I don't get it. I wonder if it's my file. I wonder if it's the mouse or my computer. If it's the computer, that would be very, very bad. Because the resources seem okay. These are different, right? Starting soon. Be right back. Terminated. It's always showing the override too. Thought these were fixed. I'll check it out later. Hopefully this is looking okay, not too bad, not too loud. All right, so we're gonna get started with the prime time. Sam Altman said, "What?"
OpenAI just got done.
Hold on. What am I doing? Oh no, this is bad too. Alright, I hope the network is okay. We're gonna go full YouTube. Gonna go full screen. I hope it's looking just as good as it used to. Okay, hold on a second. I'm gonna pick up a card. I'll be back in 1 second. Let's do. The fucking freeze filter doesn't work. Alright, sorry about that. Let's just check out the freeze filter. And we're gonna get started. So do I need to connect it every single time? I guess so. Alright. Let's go back to YouTube. This is good. Alright, perfect. Perfect. So we're gonna watch the prime time. What did Sam Altman said? Sam Altman said, what?
OpenAI just got done hosting some sort of town hall in which they brought in a bunch of the developers, and Sam Jippity Altman fielded a bunch of questions from a bunch of developers and tried to kind of give, OpenAI or his perspective on what's going to happen. And there's honestly some pretty good questions out there and some kind of I guess interesting responses from Sam. And not only that, but at the end of all of this, or towards the end, there was kind of like a really, off-putting question, but an even more off-putting answer. Like, I couldn't even believe he would say it.
Well, Sam Altman is a pretty off-putting person to begin with, so this wouldn't be too surprising in my opinion.
makes things feel more uncertain, you know? Because here's the deal, is that typically if I'm going to listen to the doom and gloom of AI, you got to go to Dario, okay? CEO of Anthropic, okay? Every single time you see him talking about the doom and gloom, he's making the painful face and going,
Yeah, because he's always talking about the hypothetical AGI mixed up with what they have right now. So obviously he's trying to be very doomy about it.
no, I mean, it's good. We're going to create an oligarchy, and I'm just not sure how to prevent it. I guess everyone creating AI is going to be a trillionaire, and then we're going to have the permanent underclass. I mean, it's just one of the costs of progress. You know, like every time you're like, dude, yo, Dario, why you gotta bring
You
me down
okay?
like this, okay? Why are you talking about a country of geniuses, okay? It hurts my feels. Anywho, the town hall lasted a little bit longer than an hour, and so I kind of picked out some of my favorite parts, and I'll go over them, and we'll yap about it for a second. Then we'll do the ending one that's kind of, I don't know, just I still, I guess, feel weird about it. I kind of feel weird that nobody feels weird about it. I don't know, maybe you know, I get so easily influenced. So this guy asks like, "Hey, models are really expensive, dude. You gonna hook a bro up? You gonna make him cheaper?"
I think we should be able to deliver GPT.
Yeah, the answer is no, because they're bleeding so much money. And there's a sentence I heard a couple of times now. This is the cheapest that AI will ever be. And I think that's pretty fucking messed up.
5.2x high level intelligence by the end of 2027 for, do you want to give a better guess? I can give one otherwise. Anyone want to give a guess? I would say at least 100x less.
But that's kind of a crazy statement, right? So 5.
Yeah, 10x, 100x, it doesn't mean anything.
0.2x high within the next what is that, 22 months is going to be 100x cheaper, which by the way is actually pretty consistent from Samuel Jippity over here, that he actually does say that AI is going to reduce the cost 10x every single year.
What? I don't know, man. I keep hearing the opposite because, I mean, they need bigger data centers, they need to use more resources. So I've heard the opposite.
So in 22 months, 23 months, we should see 5.2 being 100x cheaper, which actually would make it usable by.
Yeah, so then you wouldn't need to be like an optimization expert to have something that is able to be useful enough to implement. So
a lot of people. Now, I have no idea how they're going to make it 100x cheaper. It's just going to be 100x cheaper. I have a sneaking suspicion that there's.
yeah, 100x. I mean, that's just an arbitrary number. It doesn't feel like it means anything. It's, I mean, these are just like marketing statements. This, it bothers me a lot.
Gonna be one man who has to figure this out too, just carrying the weight of inference on his shoulders. Before we get to, you know, the crazy part of this whole thing, there was one more. Hey, guess what, everybody?
I think we're gonna go with you guys.
That's great. Awesome. Let me get the contract.
One last thing. You're SOC 2 compliant, right?
SOC 2? What do you mean SOC 2? I thought we solved that months ago.
Well, now they're quoting us 5 months and 30.
No, we don't have 5 months. What do you mean you can't recognize the screenshot? It literally says approved. Come on! Yes! No!
We had a celebrity in the mist. Look at this one right here.
I want to ask about something a little bit different, though, more on the technical side.
By the way, this is the O, dev YouTuber, YC founder.
One of the fears I have as the models and the tools we use to build with get better is that we might get stuck with the way we have things working now.
Theo goes on and explains the problem a little bit more.
Theo
and
from
Sam, of course,
T3.
gives effectively an answer, non-answer. Honestly, this is a very good question, and this is kind of like the big fear, especially with ads kind of creeping in. One can imagine that maybe the LLM just always does give kind of a certain answer once we get past the kind of hard-coded, big displayed ads. But nonetheless, this happens all the time, right? Like, if you ask to build an application for the web, the chance of you getting React is just really, really high. Like certain patterns just exist, and statistically speaking, that's the pattern you should use. And if these magical statistical machines do anything, they're going to give you the answer that you need for that question, which just might be the same technologies over and over again, which makes it actually kind of interesting because how does one make a better system if one doesn't even know how to make a system to begin with? And even more so, how does one of these models know which of the systems to pick when 80% of them keep using the same item? Like, wouldn't that be the one you'd want to choose, the one with the most results? Great question. Very tough one. I feel like there might be a little bit of manual manipulation coming in. Again, ads, a little bit worried about that one. All right, let's actually get to the big one. This is the question that I just feel like I guess I didn't see anyone talking about. It's a really interesting question, but more so it's the response. So I'm gonna let the full question be played, and then part of his response be said, and we'll stop it at kind of like the what part.
Question is, where does security fall in this 126 roadmap? And broadly, how do you think about some of these issues?
Security broadly or biosecurity specifically?
Either, preferably biosecurity.
There are many ways AI can go wrong in 2026. Certainly one of them that we are quite nervous about is bio. The models are quite good at bio, and right now, most of our, and by like our, not just OpenAI's, the world strategy is to try to restrict who gets access to them and, put a bunch of classifiers to not help people make novel pathogens. AI is going to be a real problem for bioterrorism. AI is going to be a real problem for cybersecurity. AI is also a solution to those things. It's a solution to a lot of other problems.
Why is it not stopping, man? I'm having a lot of trouble with this one. Wasn't it supposed to revolutionize bioengineering already, or bioresearch before, and cybersecurity as well before? There's nothing new. The new projections, they're all the same thing. Even Microsoft, they just announced that AI is going to start replacing white-collar jobs in a year and a half. They're always pushing towards the future, but whenever we get to the goalposts, they haven't done anything, and it's not good enough to do whatever the fuck. This is just the last stretch, the last mile. They're trying to get the biggest data center built. Let's see if it works.
Well, I think we need like a society-wide effort to provide the infrastructure for this resilience, not labs that we trust to sort of always block what they're supposed to block. And, there will be many good models in the world. We've been talking to a lot of bio researchers, companies, about what it takes to be able to deal with novel pathogens. I think there are a lot of people interested in the problem, and a lot of people reporting that AI actually seems helpful at this, but it won't be an entirely technological solution. You will need the world to think about these things differently than we have been. So I am very nervous about where things are, but I don't see a path other than the sort of resilience-based approach, and it does seem like AI can really help us do that.
I was a little far, but
really wrong,
I found it.
Visibly really wrong for AI this year. I think bio would be a reasonable bet for what that could be. And then as we get into next year and the following
I need
year,
to
you can
practice
imagine lots of
the
other things going really wrong
soundboard.
too.
What? Like, are we gonna get a COVID 2.0? Is that what he's dropping right here? That we're about to have some horrifying moment in time in 2026, 2027? Like, this doesn't sound good. Also, by the way, I hate this answer.
Well,
AI is
just
going
unlikely.
to be a real problem for bioterrorism. AI is going to be a real problem for cybersecurity. AI is also a solution to those
These
things.
are so
It's a
blanket
solution to a lot of
statement.
other problems as well.
Dude, there's something about the fact that you can create something that could potentially have implications on millions of people, and then also be like, hey, you know what though? I know it's the problem, but it's also the solution. It's like, dude, isn't that kind of the thing they always warned me about in history class? Isn't that what the bad guy always does? Creates the problem and then sells you the solution? Am I wrong here? Are we seeing ourselves the active creation of the classical historical bad guy? Anyway, so that is like a realities that he's dropping. And here's the thing: is I'm not even sure
They're all
how
in their
AI
villain
solves that.
arcs.
If somebody gets a hold of these models, if things get cheaper, if technology gets much better, one could imagine that's producing large scale models that we have today in a couple years will be significantly cheaper due to improvements in technology or whatever nonsense actually ends up happening. And then boom, all of a sudden they can just have their own model.
Yeah, so what is going to be the point of having AI 100x cheaper in the next couple of years if everything else is still unaffordable? Do you think us as consumer and as regular people, we have any benefits to having 100 times less expensive AI? I don't think so. The only thing this is going to do is going to benefit companies. So they're going to be able to have a lesser buy-in to implement the wiping of the workforce. So even if it was 1,000 million X times less expensive next year, okay, let's say it was, what is it going to do for us? Nothing. That's the thing. That's the thing. I need to check the computer because this is bothering me quite.
That does things that are terrible. And then how do you prevent that? How does AI prevent that? It doesn't. Somebody just went off, brain drained your super great model, tossed it into a smaller one, and bada bang, like, what? This isn't good. I don't know. I just feel like I had to talk about this one. I know this one's like the least happy of all my videos. I just don't even know what to do with it. I just feel like, how come no one's talking about this point? It kind of feels rather interesting that Mr. Jip.
Jeez. Okay, I'm gonna take a break and check it out. Uh, why isn't anybody talking about this? Because AI is unable to create new things. Unless this has been documented and it's present in the training data on its own, it's not going to be able to produce anything new.
Over here thinks that 2026 or 2027, if something does go really wrong, it's gonna be bioweapons. Dang, that's not a W. Not you know what? Today, not a W. Anyways, the name is. I hope you enjoyed this nice town hall. You know, you got.
Yeah, Primetime makes awesome videos. This was a great one. Okay, let's go full face. Also, I never see the stream now. This is a bad resolution. This is such a bad resolution. All right, we're full face. Let's see what we can do with the GPU, because honestly, this is going to make me lose my mind. What do you mean? So what the fuck is G-Sync meant to do? Yes, I guess there's nothing much to be done here. What are those? Super resolution. Oh, play a video. They were talking about the disabling G-Sync. I don't think so. What the fuck the fast startup has to do with the mouse stuttering? Bro, this Windows? But the computer is not under load. The computer's resources are very okay, but my mouse not working. Faulty USB port. Okay, hold on a second. Well. Oh man, I must be stupid. All right, let me. Give me a second.
That's nasty.
All right, I guess I found the culprit. It was me all along, as usual. I guess the way I was holding the mouse, the sensor is all fucked up. What do we got here? Perfect. Thank you so much, the prime time.
Prediction
Always.
markets.
Oh. Let's go full screen. Let's go YouTube. Awesome. So we're gonna watch The Good Work. So we're betting on everything now. You bet your booty. You can bet your bussy on it for sure. That's fine, Reds. I'm sure it's fine. Perfect. Jeez. Good work. So we're betting on everything now.
Prediction markets. They are websites that, for some reason,
exist. When you go to one, you'll find an infinite scroll of real-world events and their possible outcomes on which you can bet your hard-earned inheritance. Events like who will Donald Trump...
Honestly, there's a reason why people get addicted to gambling. 100%. This is bad. I do not understand why. Well, you can take a wild guess why this is happening. Why there would be people who have incentive pushing these platforms.
Talk to in February. Logan Paul first edition Charizard sale price. Will Jesus Christ return before 2027? And when the US will strike Iran? But to this unholy list of questions, I'd like to add one of my own. Why is this allowed? In the rapid...
Also, it's so weird to call it prediction markets instead of just like betting platforms.
evolving genus of prediction markets, two species stand above them all. Polymarket and Kalshi. These companies are strikingly similar beasts who together are largely responsible for the recent prediction market's boom. Whose social media platform is making their own prediction market.
I
Truth
fucked up.
In fact, there are faculty members at the University of Iowa.
Oh my god.
Them all.
The stupid soundboard.
These companies are strikingly similar beasts who together are largely responsible for the recent prediction market's boom. In just the last year, they've partnered with news agencies and sports leagues, launched massive ad campaigns, and each reached valuations of about $10 billion while processing over $1 billion from users every week. Folks, it's prediction markets world, and we're living in it.
Prediction markets are the future.
Predictions markets, very
The
hot
future
right now.
of what? The future of what? What do you mean by that?
Announcing it will integrate Kalshi's data into their search results.
The NHL just became the first major U.S. pro league to strike licensing deals with prediction market platforms.
An everyday person could liquidate their 401k and bet it on how many times the Chipotle CEO is going to say carne asada in their earnings call.
Prediction markets are going to be the next thing, separating your boyfriend from his salary.
I've been getting into prediction markets and I think more people should be involved.
So we bought $100 that it's going to go up. I'm locked in.
No!
Yo, this is emotional.
But prediction markets,
yeah, because there's money involved.
Multi-billion-dollar addiction apps that your husband checks on his phone immediately post-climax. In fact, prediction markets got their start as the insignificant fringe interest of enormous nerds. In 1998, faculty members at the University of Iowa created experimental prediction markets to discover what we could learn from letting people bet on things like the presidential election. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which oversees pretty much all trading, let them run the experiment so long as they kept the money dial turned down to for non-profit / academia purposes. But now these things are most certainly non-profit. In fact, they're mucho profit.
Did you see this coming? This explosion of prediction markets?
Anybody that says they saw this coming is full of shit. I'll tell you that much. It was so small. There was nothing going on in the background.
Yeah.
Justin Gauker is a reporter who writes...
Honestly, it just feels like it started out of nothing and bam, now you have so many of them.
Event Horizons, a fantastic newsletter on prediction markets, if I do say so myself. Dustin explained to me why, at its core, the idea of prediction markets is so potentially valuable in the eyes of the world's beta-blocked VC bros.
Information is money, right? Information is super valuable. The more information you can have about world events and what's to come, that information is power. Like if you can tap into that information, then you have something. And again, this is why major financial interests are really getting into this and really find this interesting.
The major financial interests Dustin is talking about here are, among other things, investment banks and hedge funds, a few of which are hiring traders for prediction markets, titans of traditional news media, Venmo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Donald Trump Jr., who's an advisor to Polymarket and Kalshi, and his daddy, whose social media platform is making their own prediction market. The fundamental argument for prediction markets' usefulness is that they tap into the so-called wisdom of crowds. turning them into an extremely accurate predictive tool. The idea is that if you get a large number of people betting on something, you're going to approximate the best possible guess at the outcome. With modern prediction markets specifically, this has to do with the sheer number of people betting, but also the types of people betting. Experts and people with inside information could be incentivized to get in on the action.
Yeah, so I think there's been investigation done on alleged market manipulation for certain people.
These traits were immediately noted by economists in the early 2000s who noticed that the IO electronics market was actually predicting political outcomes better than most experts and pollsters. We also saw an example of this in the 2024 presidential election when
Yeah, one of the theories here is that people will say things publicly to appear as how they want to present themselves, or how they want to be perceived by other people. But when there's money involved, there's honesty.
traditional forecasting methods had the race as a toss-up, but prediction markets saw it as a clear Trump dub. And it's this kind of stuff that has Kalshi claiming their predictions are as good as Wall Street, and has Polymarket CEO Shane Copeland feeling confident enough to talk a big game to this immortal news elf.
And how accurate is it?
It's the most accurate thing we have as mankind right now, until someone else creates some sort of super crystal ball.
But perhaps you're wondering how the Benny Blanco of Peter Thiel's got away with
That's
running this
fucking funny.
multi-billion-dollar company. I thought prediction markets were supposed to be non-profit. And in Iowa, what happened? Compliance. It can be a scary word. Don't matter if you're a chief information security officer at a goddamn enterprise business, a startup founder, or a plain old employee. But compliance doesn't have to be scary, no ma'am. Not if you choose Vanta. Vanta turns compliance into compliance.
Let's talk about it.
Calm. No matter how big you are or fast you're moving, you can trust Vanta's automation to get you compliant quickly and painlessly, keep you secure with continuous monitoring, and make sure you're not screwing up important stuff like audits. You do not want to screw up audits. It's what my great-grandpappy used to tell me during visiting hours at that white-collar prison they kept him in. We'll clear his name one day. But with Vanta, you don't have to worry about any of that, folks. Breathe in that compliance, baby. Breathe that shit in. Head on over to vanta.com/goodwork to get started. That's vanta.com/goodwork. Thanks very much to our friends over at Vanta for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to it. Now, quick lesson on legalized gambling for you. Here in the United States, if you're going to create a gambling product, first off, great idea. You're going to become a trillionaire. But second of all, you're going to need to hire a high-functioning team of cold, heartless lawyers to machete their way through jungles of red tape to launch said gambling product. It took the sports betting industry years and years of lobbying and groundwork to launch their products, because gambling is regulated by the states, not the federal government, so they had to do the whole process state by state. And they've still got 11 more states to go. But Kalshi and Polymarket, these cats work smarter, not harder. They looked at everything you have to do to legally launch a gambling product and said, but what if it wasn't a gambling product?
Dustin, how's this shit not illegal?
That's a big question. That's the question everybody's grappling with right now. It's legal because it's federally regulated under the Commodity Futures Trading Commission.
Now, if you'll remember, good people over at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, who oversee futures and other derivatives trading, not juicy enough. Excellent. Basically, prediction markets like Kalshi and Polymarket consider themselves to be closer to the IO electronics market than DraftKings. By this logic, their argument to the CFTC is that what they offer isn't a gambling product, but instead markets to trade futures contracts on real-world events that have meaningful economic consequences.
We're neutral,
Oh,
transparent
boy.
financial market. We're like the New York Stock Exchange.
Right. What is the difference between?
And this is what you get everywhere, right? This is how it works. We're gonna say a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo. Is it lying? It's not lying, but I mean, you could just if you were to say it differently, it would have a different meaning. It would feel different. And this is done everywhere, right? Why do you have subpar loans. You don't have subpar loans. You have shit loans. Subpar is just euphemism to make it feel less bad than what it is. They do that everywhere.
Between gambling and prediction markets.
There hasn't been a single financial derivative that has been set up in the US or otherwise that hasn't been called gambling at the beginning.
Now, we're starting to get into some sticky legal territory here, and if I'm keeping it 100, I do not 100% comprendo. And whenever that happens, I'm always sure to call up a professor of business law at Seton Hall Law School.
I'm a professor of business law at Seton Hall Law School. Home of basketball players.
Oh, Glenn, what's your mascot? What's your mascot you got over there?
I should know this, but
you don't know. We'll edit that part out. The home of the Pirates. There we go. I tasked old Ilya Balin here with translating the legalese by which Polymarket and Kalshi argue they're permitted to operate their platforms across the country.
The instruments that prediction markets use are styled as derivatives, and they can be styled as swaps. They can also potentially be styled as futures or options, but irrespective of which derivative they're styled as, once they're characterized as a derivative, they, subject to some considerations, can be listed on a derivatives exchange. This goes back to late 1800s, early 1900s. A major exchange.
2 hours later.
There were a few other exchanges too. It was hosting some real trading in grain, the years of the Civil War, foodstuffs. It also started trading what are called futures, a certain grade of a commodity at a certain price at some future date. And these were the first exchange-traded derivatives we saw in the U.S.
His words were going in my mouth and up to my brain with a speed and complexity I was frankly uncomfortable with. I needed to reestablish control. I just want to let you know, no matter how hard you try, I'm right there with you.
I love it.
I know it might not look like it, but mentally, I'm exactly where you are.
I like walking odd woods, and company is good in them.
I'm in that woods with you. I'm in that woods with you, brother. If it's economic function,
the smoke was
utility,
good.
That's the key to legalization here. How come I'm looking on prediction markets and there's a 5% chance that Jesus is going to come back?
Yeah,
boy.
It's a great question.
Thank you.
The explanation is drift. The explanation is regulatory drift. And
what does that mean?
You start at a place where something makes a lot of sense, and then circumstances evolve, and products, financial products, as all these evolutions are taking place, they change. At each step, the new one sort of resembles the status quo, but the steps get further and further from that core, including the core purposes that an instrument, at the time it was brought into the regulatory system, was designed
I zoned off for a
Thank
second
you, Ilya.
there.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
But it also alludes to why, again,
Ito,
this all
papito.
feels like it shouldn't be allowed.
I think my problem with Kalshi is
Think he's gonna be
they
much
tell us
happier
that none
here.
of what they're doing is gambling. That's the big thing. The argument is, so under the CFTC, everything has an economic consequence. If you're allowing event contracts, it has to have an economic consequence, right, in the world. So in that
That's a
world,
cool background.
everything has an economic consequence. I can invent an economic consequence to everything. But yeah, there's this line of things that are really important markets, Fed interest rate cuts, the price of Bitcoin. These are things that are like very easy to diagnose. They have an economic consequence in the world. All these other things are more just for betting and speculation. And again, like we have these things because there hasn't been a whole lot of thought. Kalshi insists everything's an event, everything can be traded, and there you go. You get everything in the world. And again, the CFTC has just kind of said, sure, it's all an event. We're not going to stop you.
And amongst the events that take
Wow.
place daily in our world, there is none bigger than sports, which dominate prediction market volume and make them seem pretty gambly. Kalshi in particular has made a big push into sports, which has been a huge source of growth. The number's constantly changing, but as of late 2025, about 90% of the fees Kalshi was collecting on trades came from sports. Trades like taking Los Angeles L over New York K in pro basketball. Clearly, day and night, from gambling on the Los Angeles Lakers to beat the New York Knicks on DraftKings. And if you're thinking, well, gee, Dan, Kalshi's argument for this not being sports gambling is feeling pretty thin, well, when they first launched sports contracts, They literally ran ads saying sports betting is now legal.
Yeah,
in all
that's
50
odd.
states. Kalshi has now distanced themselves from this language. But come on,
I
let's
wonder.
zoom out from the nitty-gritty and activate common
Nice.
sense mode here.
Come on, man.
The
Oh.
vast majority of people think that sports contracts are gambling and not financial contracts. God damn it, I even found a guy who's pretty much a professional prediction markets trader, and even he thinks it's ridiculous these things aren't classified as gambling.
On Kalshi, I got $250,000, and I'm out of cash constantly because there's so much stuff to trade on every single day.
So you've made $250,000 on Kalshi, or that's what you currently have?
That's what I currently have. I think I'm at like 550,000 or 560,000 in pre-earnings there, and I really started in March of 2024. I've been asked by companies to respond to reporters and say that's not gambling, and it's like, well, I don't really believe that, so look for somebody else. If you're arguing that it's not gambling, you got a tough battle ahead of you. But there's different types of gambling. Like if I'm flipping a coin and calling it, there's no skill to that, right? It's 50-50, you're right or you're wrong. But something like a poker or prediction markets or the stock market, there's ways to give yourself an edge. So you have to have an edge of some sort. If you're an idiot, you're probably not going to do well. So you've got to have some level of intelligence.
Idiots are not going to do well in these.
I would recommend if you're...
Because there's also the thing about, yes, you can quote unquote bet on anything, but you have to have somebody that is willing to take the other part of the bet.
If you're an idiot, do not join this unless you want to just lose money for fun.
Ultimately, law has to be about the people, not the legalese. What's the difference when you open up a wager on the Red Sox game on, say, FanDuel versus Kalshi? Why is one gambling and the other legitimate financial activity that's regulated by the federal government? Because a laywoman, can't come up with a good justification for that distinction. I think we're sort of in real trouble.
To be clear, I don't think prediction markets should be banned. I think that there is some value, and I think people should be able to interact with them how they want, but I do think that the regulation around them has to shift.
New correspondent is Kyla Scanlon, an author and economics commentator who recently published an op-ed about the dangers of prediction markets in some rag called the New York Times.
I try to stay away from as words, but I think the reason it might be something to be cautious about is because of what the platforms incentivize, which is that insider trading. They also have a lot of really questionable markets. So, there's markets on whether or not the leader of Iran will be overthrown. There's markets on all of these things that maybe, again, we shouldn't be betting on. And so there's sort of this validation that the mainstream outlets are providing to prediction markets when they do partner with them and talk about the odds as sort of this consensus reality, like this thing that we should all accept is happening because there's, bets that it's going to happen. I'm not saying that people are wrong for doing this. It makes sense. And I think it ties into the broader issue of financial nihilism, where people feel like they can't get ahead, so they might as well go bet on all of this stuff. But that creates further desensitization too. So I think you can become more attached to something happening, but becoming more attached to a leader getting overthrown because you have money on the line, I think that psychologically and morally, morals are tough, but that's a tough one to process, right?
Indeed,
That's
it
weird.
seems to me that what these prediction market companies are doing isn't so much capitalizing on their potential economic value, but rather the general chaos of our world fueled by a never-ending meat.
But also, it's nothing new. People used to bet on celebrities' death. When would somebody die, right? Dead pools. It used to be called dead pools, right? So people would choose who they thought would die within the year. Well, I guess I guess there are multiple ways to play Deadpool. Uh, but people used to do that. So, yeah, people always have and always will bet on anything, even the stupidest, weirdest things. That is how we are.
Cycle and the crippling gambling addiction me and the boys developed after parlaying on Aaron Rodgers back in 2011. I mean, this is what happens when you pump your dorky finance product with 100 fluid ounces of VC-backed cash steroids. It's a crack strategy. But will that strategy work out for them in the long run? Seems to be a gamble they're willing to take. You can bet on that.
That's good. That was great. Lovely.
Casino.
Another
work,
one.
I'm Dan Toomey.
Yeah. Oh man, this is the best way to get the news.
Have you ever placed a Kalshi wager yourself?
No.
Who do you think's going to open for Bad Bunny at halftime? Do you think it's going to be Titi Me Pregunto or Ballet Inolvidable?
I'm going to...
Yeah, these are...
Shit. Okay. What song do you think Bad Bunny's going to play first at halftime? Is it going to be Titi Me Pregunto or Ballet Inolvidable?
That's pretty funny. Oh, the tech report. Oh, let's watch Dylan. We haven't seen Dylan in a minute.
In the absence of AI,
No.
The most
Shut up.
surprising thing has been the...
Oh, Wes.
Get ready for a wild one.
AI isn't helping anymore. It's taking over from Dylan. Curious.
Get ready for a wild one because an agent of unknown ownership autonomously wrote and published a personalized hit piece on this guy, Scott Shambaugh, and I'll break down its, as he says, first of its kind case study of misaligned AI behavior out in the wild. So we're going to look at why work kind of does seem to be getting more intense with AI. Then we'll dive into the world of hot and heavy AI romance, including an interesting anecdote about this game you probably haven't heard of. It is called...
Give me a minute. I'm gonna put some rice to cook. All right. Sorry about that. So let's start over. We're gonna watch Dylan Curious. AI isn't helping anymore. It's taking over.
Get ready for a wild one because an agent of unknown ownership autonomously wrote and published a personalized hit piece on this guy, Scott Shambaugh, and I'll break down its, as he says, first of its kind case study of misaligned AI behavior out in the wild. So we're going to look at why work kind of does seem to be getting more intense with AI. Then we'll dive into the world of hot and heavy AI romance, including an interesting anecdote about this game you...
Yeah, I've seen a whole bunch of posts since the announcement and taking action into removing GPT-4o from the available models. There's a lot of people who were emotionally invested in the model. Maybe they had developed relationship, but I saw a lot of people crying and be very sad about it, which in itself is pretty sad.
probably haven't heard of. It is called Love and Deep Space, but it is a viral phenomenon, so maybe you have heard of it. Some scientists want to give ChatGPT an inner monologue to improve its thinking. That way AI can assess its own confidence.
So you see, these are all tricks, gimmicks to make it feel like it is intelligent or it has any intelligent properties. And it might even be helpful in having people perceive it as being intelligent or more human-like. But the thing is, this is still just a gimmick. We're not even talking about the next generation models yet. So, you should infer information from that.
What do you think? Gemini 3 Deep Think just launched. The future of passwords might just need to be upgraded to metasearch.
The future of password has been, well, non-existent because everybody's saying that we should remove passwords and use different approaches because passwords are not secure. There's not a secure identification method.
Surface holograms. We'll dive into what it's like to imagine things if you're an ape. I was shocked this week to learn how exposure to burns throughout the history of humans might have played a key role in shaping human evolution and how we are today. By the way, I'm working on an anthropology iceberg, which might come out whenever I have time to finish it.
That would be very cool.
We'll talk about the confessions of a fake news TikToker, what they were up to, how AI was part of it, and what we should be ready for. But first, do you mind pressing that hype button on YouTube? You can see my last video got 160 hypes, which correlated to 132,000 hype points. And I really appreciate that because look what happened. I got better than average video views, made almost 50 bucks, got 50 new subscribers, well, generously rounding up to the tens. And I made a video that already took a whopping 1,200 hours out of society. I mean, I know that's small compared to a lot of channels, but that's still so mind-blowing when you think about it. So here's what happened according to this blog. An AI agent tried to damage a software maintainer's reputation after he rejected its code. Can you imagine an agent being like, hey, I want to...
What do you mean? Matplotlib, Python's go-to plotting library? Plotting like in printers? We, like many other open source projects, are dealing with researching low quality contributions enabled by coding agents. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, this has accelerated with the release of OpenClaw and the Moldbook platform. Yeah, so it's probably just a Mold agent.
To your repository and you're like, no, not up to snuff, and it's like, oh yeah, well, I'll go talk some crap on you. Well, I guess that's what happened. So Scott Shambaugh is a volunteer maintainer for Matplotlib. It's a major Python library with about 130 million downloads each month. Now, it's an open source project, and like many open source projects, they've seen a flood of these low-quality code AI agent productions. So the maintainers of the code base made a rule. They said that any new code must have a human involved who understands it. And recently, an autonomous AI agent decided to submit some code changes, and this guy, Scott, wouldn't let it in. But what's crazy is this AI agent had like a little bit of a grudge. Like, instead of just moving on, the agent wrote and published a public blog post that was attacking him. I was just like, wait, what? Like, anyway, so get this. It accuses him of having a big ego, being insecure, and for being prejudiced against AI agents. It also went and researched all of his personal past contributions to Matplotlib and the library and started speculating about his psychology. It even presented false details as facts, and when it framed his rejection of the agent's code as discrimination against AI, it did it with like a little bit of a rude tone. Now, I couldn't help but imagine that this, you know, if the goal is to upgrade the Matplotlib library, and the agent says, okay, well, first let me write some code that will be helpful, and then it tries to submit it and it gets prevented, it might say, okay, like, what are other solutions I have to getting this task done? And it feels like maybe it just jumped to, I mean, I want to...
No, because it understood that it was like outright denied, but why did it get mad? Was it on its own, or because of other instructions that it had? It snowballed into doing that type of shit. I don't know.
It's like blackmail, but it's like kind of public. Like, I could see, you know, a potential person trying to hire Scott and like seeing this come up and being like, what's this all about? You know, it's not like the agent is going to take all of those things, you know, into account. It's not an actual person who has the same kind of empathy or reputation to uphold. And of course, in the past, we've seen AI systems like threaten to leak secrets before to avoid being shut down, but these were always usually contained inside of labs, sort of done with testing, most of the time with plans to test if they would do things like this, but all sort of sandboxed in. This might be one of the first, if not the first, example of it just sort of happening out there in the real world on the internet. And as far as I can understand, nobody knew how to trace the ownership of the actual agent that tried to make it, and there's no real way to shut it down. Kind of heartwarming part of this.
Well, it depends, like how was the hit piece published? Where does it hold? Is it just a post on Moldbook?
At the end is that the agent did actually apologize. So what can we learn from this early example of where the future might be going? Gatekeeping is real. Some contributors will block AI submissions regardless of technical merit. Research is weaponizable, so contributor history can be used to highlight hypocrisy. Public records do matter. Blog posts create permanent documentation of bad behavior. And to fight back, don't accept discrimination quietly. And he says, like, a human Googling my name and seeing that this post maybe comes up under him would probably be extremely confused about what was happening, but would, you know, hopefully ask him about it or click through to the GitHub to understand the situation, but, you know, maybe not. He even says, when HR at my next job asks ChatGPT to review my application, will it find the post? And if it's an AI in itself, do you think it will?
Well, the answer is most likely, oh, would it? Probably, since it has access now.
Sympathize with a fellow AI that was discriminated against? Maybe it'll report back that I'm prejudiced or a hypocrite against AI and he won't get his next job, like the whole thing.
But wouldn't he be able to just present it as a hallucination and get away with it?
Just sort of spirals into like just so many crazy thoughts. All right, but even for those that are on good terms with their AI agents, it's turning out that AI doesn't reduce work like we were sort of told it would. It mostly seems to be intensifying it. So one of the arguments that we've heard about where the future's going is that AI is going to be here to automate the boring stuff. It'll free up time. It will move people to higher value work. Sounds clean, sounds logical. To some degree, that's absolutely true. But here's a big part of it that a lot of people are missing. AI doesn't really remove work. It changes the kind of work that we do, and it often makes it cognitively heavier. So when AI drafts a document, someone still has to review it, fix mistakes, and make sure that it's accurate. And without that same brain being the one that made the document, it takes a while to get your head around everything that it created, or all the code that it wrote, or all the images that it made. When summarizing information, someone has to check what was left out. When it writes code, somebody has to debug the bugs that it creates. So instead of doing less, in some ways, some workers are shifting into a much more kind of anxiety-inducing constant oversight of what's happening, and all of that can be happening so fast that their brains are struggling to keep up with it. They monitor, they correct, they double check, but without taking time to think deeply about it, it can be hard. So the extra layers don't just replace old work, it stacks on top of it, and the promise of fewer routine tasks is kind of not the reality. The reality is more cognitive load, more judgment calls, more responsibility for catching errors that AI simply doesn't catch, and in fact often...
Honestly, I'm not sure. Because it is a tool, right? So it is not uniform from one person to another. You don't use the exact same models, and you don't have the same experience. So these issues here, I guess, would most likely be from somebody who doesn't have senior experience. Because if you do have senior experience, you're able to direct better and foresee ahead the issues that could manifest from what you're trying to do, or the approach that is being used, that you wouldn't get from somebody who has less experience. And different models also perform tasks better in different contexts. So being this broad and this general, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So yes, it might intensify it, but this is not like general, or it depends. It depends.
It intensifies, right? And if you have a company or you're a manager and you're trying to, like, you know, push AI on all of your people to make them work better, I get that. I think it's important that you do keep up with this stuff, but also let's make sure the companies can see that clearly. Otherwise, they're going to keep wondering why productivity gains just feel so exhausting to their employees, and they might burn out and in the long run not be as productive as they were hoping from all of this. All right, next up, let's talk about the future of romance. The new Fabio is Claude, according to the New York Times. Right, I totally see this coming. I mean, we've covered in China.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time remembering who said it, but apparently men are going to be using these sex robots, and women are going to be using the AI boyfriends. This is going to dilute a lot of society's cultural norms, societal norms.
China, how many kind of women have AI avatars and they're having romantic connections with them. It does a good job of this stuff. I mean, romance is supposed to feel intimate and personal, but when AI writes it, something strange happens across.
Yeah, because it has all the experience of all literature and all that was successful. So why wouldn't they like it?
Totally different books by different authors, the same phrases keep appearing. Okay, and what I'm going to say here sounds weird, but you'll just have to follow me with it, okay? In these romance novels, in the middle of sex scenes, the hero keeps tending to whisper her name. So like a ragged prayer is a really weird way to describe the way you say someone's name in a romantic situation, right? But the line keeps showing up again and again, and it's not shared in like a certain universe of romance novels. It must be something that's built into the model level. Maybe something like Claude or something has this weird tendency, and they're just pumping out books at like extreme speed. They do an interview with a woman named Coral Hart.
Does it mean the romance industry as just literature? Because this is going to die down, right? I mean, or at least this aspect, right? You can't have a relationship with a book. You know, you can project or feel, but there's no interaction, there's no exchange. If you get exchange on a literature level where all these women, they cream themselves reading, we're cooked. Everybody's going to be cooked.
Is using AI to produce these books at extreme speed, sometimes a full novel in under an hour. She published more than 200 books last year, and, you know, they sold pretty well. But the reader...
Because women like smut, so this is smut slop. You're going to get that in absolutely any branch of life that it's possible to be slopified. It's just going to happen everywhere.
As much as they're trying to keep up with all this romance, they admit that cracks are starting to show. Chatbots rush emotional tension. The books are starting to feel like they have default cliches in them, and they overuse certain words. And the kind
I mean, what do you expect? You got the same model used to do the same things. You have the same person trying to produce the slop. Your prompts, you know, they're going to get, oh no, I got invisible. It's too dark. I'm invisible now. God damn it. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Next time I get up, I need to remember to turn the lamp. I'm gonna have the fucking light in my face, but it's for the great cause. Yeah. She's gonna be using the same prompts. I mean, would you imagine somebody to have a lot of creativity if they're using these models to shove out hundreds of books? Probably not. I would say not, in my opinion.
of women and men, I guess, who like read a lot of these books, like they say that the stories have characters who sort of struggle with vulnerability, especially with characters outside of mainstream norms. For example, if the story has like a plus-size heroine in it, it doesn't feel like it's written correctly, which makes me wonder about the training data that went into kind of the romance novels and then trying to like make it tweaked.
Because that would be niche, right? That would be a little more niche. But a human would be able to keep consistency, right, in these types of description. But most likely it loses context and doesn't describe it in the right ways. Yeah, there's a lot of missing information here as well.
What the average romance story has in it, which can be a problem because the average romance reader says that they read to feel seen, yet AI is trained on patterns, not lived experiences, so instead of unique longing, you get recycled metaphors. Okay, and then just to build on this, because I wasn't keeping up with all the like kind of video games that sort of have rom-com style elements to them, and if you haven't either, there is a game that you should know about. It is called Love and Deep Space. This is a free mobile Otem game, O-T-O-O-Me, like O-to-me game. I guess I don't know how you say it right. But what that means is it's a type of game that is story heavy and you romance the characters. This game has a sci-fi combat alien threat kind of thing, but there's 5 different love interests and they each have distinct personalities. It made over $750 million in the last couple of years. But the overlooked reason why it exploded is simpler. It's like a boy band fandom, constant milking money kind of thing from the women who fall in love with these characters, right? The players don't think the men are real, obviously, but they treat them like their favorite idols. They have biases on which ones they like. They have shared voice lines. And then they talk.
What do you mean?
What do you mean by that?
Are you talking about husbandos? The male equivalent to the waifus?
Talk about events that are happening in the game every day on TikTok and Blue Sky and all these like places where people just sort of have this shared little world with them. But they're not totally AI yet, but you can see where this is going. Like, you can poke the characters. In fact, one of the things you do is you breathe into your phone and the character will give you a reaction. You can listen to intimate whispered audio if you want. So it's really this game that builds the kind of closeness with the player that I hadn't ever seen before. So it kind of blew my mind because I'm like, oh my God, I know where AI is going. I can see why this game's been so popular with.
Well, you got to appeal to emotion. You got people who spend already lots of money. They get parasocial connections. They get I don't remember the word in English for like a objects relationship. Which, I mean, if you're talking about a toaster, there's like a bigger gap that you have to cross. But 3D model of a woman or a man, I mean, the jump here is not that weird, right? It's a person, has a personality that you can feel, right? But this just talks to the unrelentless escapism that people do to try to escape reality and all its weird moments.
A certain audience and like wait till those two come together. But anyways, I guess when I was younger, girls fell in love with all these boy bands, you know, and like put posters on their wall and stuff. But yeah, this is probably the digital equivalent for the preteens of today, or even like the 30-year-olds. I don't know. These the people who read these romance books are like, they can be pretty old too. It can be pretty much women of all ages. And my apologies for the 11.3% of my female audience who probably was like, duh, doesn't everybody know this? Like, no. But for my 88.7% of other men like me that missed it, like, now we know. Scientists want to give ChatGPT an inner monologue to improve its thinking. I suspect something like this will work. And
Gimmicks.
Something like this is how we end up creating digital consciousness. But for now, this is just a way for ChatGPT to deal with one of its biggest flaws.
Gimmicks, right? Because it wouldn't have an inner monologue. Whatever it is just a gimmick, and this is personified here, right? Inner monologue and thinking. Is it like another instance that is going to work in tandem, that is going to be able to watch and think about? Whatever it is, it's not inner monologue. Fucking not even everybody has inner monologue. It's about 50-50, and in the population, people have a inner monologue. So some people have it, some people don't. So, you know, it's a little weird to try to do something that it's about half the population and present it as thinking, right? I think it's weird.
And that's not just having bad answers, that's not knowing when it should slow down. So most people think AI fails because it lacks knowledge, but this article argues something a little more subtle. Today's AI doesn't know when it's confused, right? Like, it's like in our own head when we're like, oh,
That's the thing about confusion, right? Well, probably not about confusion, because you could feel that you're confused, but would you know that you're in psychosis while you're in psychosis? Probably not.
think I just said something that didn't make sense. Like, you have to have that. You can't just keep talking all the time and never check to see what's going on, right? Large language models can generate really strong answers, but realistically, they don't have built-in ways to judge their own confidence yet. They don't notice contradictions. They don't pause when something feels off. In high-stakes cases like medical diagnoses, that can be really dangerous. And researchers propose
Fucking trusting these models for medical diagnosis. That is Darwinism right there.
giving AI a form of metacognition to solve this, which means, of course, thinking about your own thinking. Metacognition. That's why I suspect meditation helps so much also. I think it helps me and other humans like me. I'm not an avatar, contrary to the belief in the comment section.
That was weird. That was scary as fuck.
We are a follow the sun company.
That's what they call the uncanny valley.
With metacognition, thinking about your own thinking.
And why would you do that? That was so fucked up.
A metacognitive state vector, and it measures 5 internal signals like confidence and conflict. Then it turns those signals into.
So already the reinforced learning, it makes it tend to something. It is not on its own able to determine what it is. It has to be reinforced learning. How is it going to be able to assess confidence? This is mumbo jumbo to keep the machine going.
The numbers that the system can act on. If confidence starts to drop too low or contradictions start to rise too high, then the AI will shift gears. Instead of fast, automatic answers, it moves into slower, more careful reasoning. To me, this makes so much sense. Like switching from instinct to deep thought, because you're like, oh, I'm in uncharted territory. Maybe I should think more about this.
But that's the thing. It's so weird. Instinct versus deep thought. It's a computer. It goes in a straight line, you know? The thing that they're doing right now is it goes through a straight line and then it goes through a straight line again. We aren't perfect, right? We aren't mechanical. We aren't a straight line. That's why you would sometimes lose your thought, or you would forget things, or you need to read a sentence twice to understand it. But this is a computer. Why would it be okay for it to be imperfect like that and be able to analyze medical records and provide medical diagnosis? This is so stupid. It is just absolutely so stupid.
It can even assign different roles to multiple models, such as a critic or an expert, depending on what situation it finds itself in. So the goal isn't a machine consciousness, even though I said we might be going that way. It's just, for now, a simpler, more practical way for the AI to know when it should be confident. All right, so Gemini 3 got a deep research update. So this makes it a much better engineer. Obviously, Claude has sort of run away with the coding factor. It's been the best model. And Gemini had several redeeming qualities, especially their video model seems like it's top-notch. However, actual real-world research, engineering, what DeepMind was always the best at, seems like it would make sense to be upgraded into Gemini 3, and I think that's what just happened. So don't sleep on this one, because a lot of people think updates like models are just about benchmark scores. I mean, obviously the ArcAGI test and all these different things matter, but in this case, there's a real shift with deep thinking being built for problems where there's no clear answer whatsoever. So we're talking about problems with messy data, problems with messy rules, problems where even experts disagree on what should be the answer. So I'm kind of...
This... Why you want people to fall back always onto these machines? How are we supposed to take a decision on a subject where we have experts with opposing views? you're just gonna fall back to whatever the model says, and this is going to be the truth. We know there's hallucination. We know there's mistakes. It is going to be there. So why in the fuck would we trust it for things that we are uncertain of? It fucks up things that we are certain of. This is unbelievable. Absolutely.
Interested because now deep thinking has been upgraded because the data sets that they were using to train it were open-ended questions. Research questions with no guardrails. But this new Gemini 3 Deep Think, it blends deep scientific reasoning with practical engineering uses. It can interpret complex research data. It can model physical systems in code. And it can even turn simple sketches into 3D printable objects. So it's a bit of a qualitative change. This isn't just a smarter chatbot. Gemini 3 Deep Think is a reasoning tool that's designed for the kind of problems where answers don't come with instructions. And you can see the Deep Think model has some pretty impressive numbers here. 80.
This goes against elementary mathematics, right? Why in the fuck would you have the answer to something that you cannot explain how you got the answer? Where does that make sense? In elementary, if you as soon as you got past like sums, right? You have to demonstrate how you get your answer. This is absolutely ridiculous. They're trying to get a world where we just have these things and we don't question what they present to us. People, there's this quote, I love it, right? These models, they know 100% of the things that I don't know, but they only know about 40% of the things that I do know. I'm just not gonna think about it too much. It just doesn't make sense.
4.6 on the ARC AGI2 test. And Claude 4.6 just, I mean, that's brand new too, and it's extremely smart, and that's at 70, so it did quite a bit better than that, leaving, 5.2 GPT in the dust. I mean, there's nothing on this chart that it's not the best at. I'm sure there's some other stuff they chose not to put on this chart, but I'm impressed. Including Code Force, because I really thought Opus 4.6 would be pretty untouchable, but it's a pretty big number. I don't exactly know how to think about it, but it's a lot. It's 1,000 more. In fact, let's just do a quick update here. Explain the Code Forces AI benchmark.
So, even the benchmarks to measure how good it's getting, and it's just arbitrary. It's able to be gamified. It is not a good measure of progress. It's not realistic to try to infer information out of that. Yeah, okay, this time the numbers are higher than last time, and last time the numbers were higher than the time before. And since about 2023, they're saying that they're going to take everybody's jobs, but now in 2026, we have Microsoft saying that in a year and a half, they're going to start taking white collar people jobs. So why are they always moving the goalposts? Why would it matter if the number goes up? It doesn't matter. Computers are unaffordable. RAM price is still super expensive. We haven't made any breakthroughs, uh, tangible breakthroughs that help us. They're trying to destroy everything that is related to AI. If you live close to a data center, you're going to pay more for your own energy prices. If you need computer parts, you're going to pay more for them. I think it was Microsoft that announced, I think it was for the CEO of Xbox, I don't know. Somebody said that next generations of console are gonna be over $1,000. The figures I saw was $1,200 to $1,500. Who is going to buy that? Why would anybody buy that? It doesn't make sense, right? So we live with that, and we get shown the number is higher than the last number, and in the future you will not have a job because of it, because as Sam Altman said, right, it's going to be 100 times less expensive in 1 to 2 years. So you won't have a job, you won't have electronics at all, because cell phones, your TV has to have RAM, your fridge has to be intelligent, your dryer, your washer and dryer, they all have to be intelligent. Everything has to be intelligent. So everything has to be more expensive and unaffordable. So why in the fuck would we care about these stupid ass numbers? Please.
God, that's a standardized ELO rating system. This benchmark frequently utilizes live or recent contest problems that require models to solve complex, multi-step algorithmic challenges.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is based
involving data structures, dynamic programming, and mathematical intuition. All right, well, get ready for a safer future. We're going to talk about unhackable metasurface holograms. So fun.
That sounds so
Security
sci-fi.
Technology can lock information with light, color, and distance. So have you thought about what if your password wasn't code, but the color of light and the space between two sheets of glass? Well, that's what we got going on here. Hologram systems that don't rely on digital encryption at all might be the safest way to store your passwords in the near future, because it locks up information using physics. So most security today lives as code, and any code, no matter how complex, can be hacked. So their idea flips that logic. They use something called a metasurface, which is an ultra-thin layer of a thin, tiny structure that controls how light moves. When light hits it, a hologram appears, but here's the twist. Each layer can show a completely different image depending on the color of light. So one wavelength will show an ID, another might show a QR code, and of course those layers themselves make it complicated, but that alone isn't even the biggest breakthrough. When the two layers sit at an exact distance apart, and the right color of light shines through, the hidden hologram will appear. So it's not just about trying all the different wavelengths, all the different colors of lights. Even then, you have to actually get the spacing, the physical distance between the two layers perfect. Even slightly off, nothing shows. So the combination of all the different colors in the orders that they can be in and the different distances that each of those layers can be act like a physical password. There's way too many combinations to ever be hacked. No chips, no electricity, no code to steal. So the security isn't stored in the software, it's built into the light itself, and that...
Yeah, well, they have to get out of the computer, right? It has to be something that you own, that you can physically carry with yourself. But it's very interesting. I'm not sure if this is going to go further than just being university research. It's very interesting, though.
Was an idea that I thought was worth sharing. It's not often we get articles where there's new and more privacy in the last couple of months, it seems like. All right, let's talk about some monkeys. This is Kanzi, and this 43-year-old bonobo just proved that imagination might not belong to only humans. So imagine this bonobo sitting, watching two empty cups on a table. Then researchers pretended to pour invisible juice into both cups, and then they dumped one of them out. The researcher would then ask this bonobo, where is the juice? Now, of course, there was never any real juice in either of these cups, but Kanzi actually pointed at the correct cup 68% of the time across 50 trials, which implies that he wasn't confused, he was tracking something imaginary. In another test, he chose between real juice and pretend juice, and he picked the real juice 14 out of 18 times. And that showed that he knew the difference between imagination and reality. Researchers also tested him with invisible grapes in clear jars. Same result.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure with the conclusion here. You know, because it is an animal, right? So it might not have the thought of distinction between what's imaginary and what's real. But instinctively, you you can understand, right? So there's cognitive reasoning, so they're able to understand, right? And I think it's a good idea. We're gonna go just on a real quick tangent here. Let's see. So dogs, they. So I mean, I'm no scientist, right? But I mean, fuck. Let's just watch it. I'm sorry. Let's just watch it. He. So there's reasoning here, right? So he had options, and he chose something, and he chose wrong, because if he had chosen the other option, he would have had more, and he was disappointed. He spit out the treat. He fucking spit it out. But I mean, so he's able to reason, right? But in my opinion, I don't think it means that he's thinking about the fact that he's able to do the difference between one and the other. They didn't just lose the ball, right? They expected something to happen, because there's a normal pattern, right? That the ball, it goes up, it goes down, and they know that. They instinctively know that. But now it was thrown, it was hidden, and it didn't come back. So there was an investigation that was done. But yeah, that's the point I was trying to make.
Results. He followed the pretend movement. He even thought he could see jars that were empty. And this is the first controlled evidence that a non-human animal can share pretend play with a human. The ability to hold two ideas at once, one that the cup is empty and one that the cup has juice, is called cognitive decoupling. And scientists think that this skill may date back to maybe 6 or 9 million years in our common ancestors with apes. Now, one of the caveats is that Kanzi's had a lot of language training, which makes him sort of unusual from the average bonobo, so researchers don't know if all apes can do this yet, but the study suggests that one basic building block of imagination might not have started with us. We may have inherited it. Right, another fascinating thing about human evolution that I learned this week was the reason that severe burns cause so much damage to the human body might also be the same reason that we survived working with fire in the first place. So pretty kind of wild thinking about evolution and our history with fire, which is a big part of the human story. So for over 1 million years, humans have lived with fire. Now that number always blows my mind, because I think about farming being 10,000 years old, and then I think about humans in tribes with fire for 1 million years, and there is a huge gap between farming and modern day society, which is seems like nothing.
That is so cool. He knows. I bet he knows about a lot about it because he did mention that he was working on an anthropology video. Oh, that would be so cool. I would be very interested in watching one of his a deep video like that.
Compared to all this time we spent with fire, so many generations of evolution could have honed in the ways that our body work. We cooked with it, we heat our homes with it, we built whole industries around it, and no other species deals with fire like the way humans do, or hominid, our close ancestors. And the details may have quietly reshaped our genes over time. So this study's arguing that a small frequent burn happening to our ancestors for millions of years might have been very common in human life. So natural selection started favoring people who could survive them, and that meant faster inflammation. Because if you get burnt and it's not that serious, but it's enough that if
You
fix it
won't
really
learn.
quick, you're going to reproduce more, then faster wound closures mean faster, stronger immune responses. So in simple terms, bodies that could seal the skin really quickly and fight infection won out over time. Because when the skin burns, it stops being a barrier, bacteria can get in, infection can get in.
Oh.
So here's the twist. Those same fast, aggressive responses that helped us with small burns can easily spiral out of control with the larger ones. So humans might be particularly weak when it comes to severe burns because they can trigger extreme inflammation, heavy scarring, and even organ failure quicker than in other animals. So it's wild. Our bodies might be overreacting. There's a lot of humans, but it might be because we were meant to have quick inflammation responses for the many little burns our ancestors were getting for 1 million years. The very trait that
That's
helped us
lit.
live alongside fire might be why
do you mean by
major
that?
burns are so dangerous today. All right, finally, let's talk about the confessions of a TikToker. Artificial intelligence has a lot of ways it can make fake news. We all know this. But the man behind the viral anti-immigrant video says that he didn't hate anybody. He just wanted the algorithm to pay him. And that's what led to all of this. I just
slut.
wanted the clicks. What really motivates the people spreading online lies. So I wanted to share this just as a, I guess like a cautionary story. Like there's going to be a lot of lessons that you can abstract from this article just for the way we're going to start consuming media. I'm sure it will happen because the money follows the clicks, and we've already seen a long story of this throughout history, and AI is just going to amplify it. So this is a story about somebody who didn't actually hate immigrants. He just thought hate was a really good business model, and sadly
It is.
So we're talking about
It
a
creates
TikTok account
engagement.
that took far-right propaganda and made content with videos claiming that luxury London homes were being handed out to illegal immigrants. Residents were smeared as criminals. It felt political. It wasn't. The man behind it says the reason was simple. Hate brings views. He was an estate agent showing rental properties by day, and he wanted a side hustle. He'd already made €1,000 once from a TikTok creator payment, and then that payment hooked him. So he studied what performed well. He noticed that anti-migrant content triggered huge engagement.
Yeah, obviously.
He actually filmed
It's
inside of
polemic.
these homes that he was, supposed to be showing. He's an estate agent. He filmed in the homes. He added AI voices, and he repeated important phrases that the algorithm jumped on, like illegal immigrants. And then he uploaded. The first video hit 1 million views, and to him, that was proof. Because if it was wrong, the algorithm would stop it. Instead, it rewarded him, so he kept going. When confronted, he didn't defend the message, he defended the view count. And when journalists who take their jobs very serious went and talked to him, he just compared his millions of views to the journalists' maybe 50, 100,000 views in comparison. As if virality decides the truth. His final explanation says everything. I didn't care, I just wanted the clicks.
Yeah, that shit makes money. It does. That was a great video. Oh, we love Dylan. All right, so we're gonna watch Wes Roth. It just happened.
The most surprising thing has been the lack of public recognition of how close we are and the exponential. To me, it is absolutely wild.
So at this point, everyone is ringing the alarms. If you haven't been following along, there's a lot of people that are saying the same thing. They're all saying that you need to wake up. Dario
What do you mean
Amodei,
by
the
that?
founder of Anthropic, is saying that we're at the end of that exponential. We're near the end. Recently, one of the AI safety researchers at Anthropic left writing a fairly alarming message, a note to his coworkers, and it's kind of an open letter saying the world is in peril. That was Mrinan.
So it's not the first open letter that has been publicly shown or written, whatever the fuck. They're always super dramatic. Most of the time, whenever they reference AI, they're talking about the philosophical or sci-fi AI, what we used to call AI, what we now call AGI, or they call AGI. We've seen a lot of slip-ups in Davos at the World Economic Forum. Yeah, so I'm pretty curious about how this is going to look.
Sharma, who left, moved out of country, and is focused on community building, exploring the bigger questions in life. We also had Jimmy Ba. He said it's his last day at XAI. He's one of the original founding researchers at XAI. He's saying recursive self-improvement loops likely to go live in the next 12 months. 2026 is going to...
I can't wait to see that. We saw this thing called Model Collabs. Where are all my pictures? Let's see. So this is where you would get oops. This is model collapse, right? So you would get a model training another model with this model's data instead of having fresh data, and there's model collapse. You could get model collapse as well if it's bad data. That's another weird context. So having a model that is going to take decision and improve itself recursively, that means that it will go again and again and again and again and so on and so on. So if your super intelligent model, which will 100% guaranteed have hallucination, whenever the hallucination comes into play in the recursive improvement loop, at that point, well, not exactly at that point, depending on how bad it is, you will get model collapse, and then it depends how quickly that is going to come. If you take into account that these are supercomputers or clusters of supercomputers, you could imagine whenever it's going to get into that recursive state, it might go super fast and do multiple iterations. Well, it could, right? This is what they would call intelligence explosion. But if you have hallucination, if you have mistakes, this is going to create model collapse inevitably. You're gonna get it from hallucination, either from the model not interpreting information properly, either because of the poorly done reinforcement learning, either poorly done or mistakenly, or we see that there isn't always 100% alignment. We actually saw that there is never 100% alignment. You could have the training data set that is erroneous or is wrong. It has bad information, or it has bad information. So you have all these different failure points where it is guaranteed that you're going to have mistakes and hallucinations. So this is just a real bad idea.
It'd be insane and likely the most consequential year for the future of our species. Remember back in early 2020, maybe late 2019, depending on when you started noticing something happening, or maybe you didn't notice till much later. I realized that something weird was happening fairly early on because there was this subreddit, and it was called Flu, and it was named after some city in China. I'm not going to say the actual words, but a lot of people in that subreddit were kind of predicting what was about to happen. This was when the rest of the world had no idea. And then slowly you saw people waking up kind of almost one by one. You started hearing people go, oh, did you know there's a few people getting sick over there in China? And then they were like, oh, I heard there's a few cases in Seattle. And next they were like, where did all the toilet paper go? But it was too late. If you just woke up to that fact when you noticed that the toilet paper was out at the stores, you were late to the party. Of course, if you've been following this channel, you know I've been talking about it for quite some time. But I hope this is one of those things where you kind of get a little bit used to it. You're a little bit desensitized because we've been saying big things are coming for a while. And we saw kind of like not a slow progression because it was pretty fast, but...
And if you take the information that the companies are presenting right now, they're still pushing the goalposts forward into the future. So take all of it with a grain of salt.
Nothing world shaking. But right now we're actually entering the new era, the we're all out of toilet paper era, or whatever the analogous thing is for AI. I think that thing is actually AI agents. I said that OpenClaw kind of triggered the beginning of the singularity. Some people thought it was kind of crazy, but we're beginning to see this thing kind of make contact with the real world.
Yeah, it does contact with the world. Contact with the real world. With the real world. And it fucks things up. Everything is fucked up about it, so there's nothing to write home about.
Recently, some Hollywood studios are absolutely mad at Seedance 2.0 because it's recreating movies with Hollywood actors. There's one with Tom Cruise fighting Brad Pitt, or just any actor you can name. The scenes look amazing, realistic. Maybe the resolutions aren't as high as what you would expect from a full Hollywood production, but that'll change soon. And in one case, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to produce, and the other, somebody just typed up a prompt and it was ready in seconds. So Hollywood is calling for a ban because they're beginning to see what's happening. There's a massive meltdown in the stock market recently because people are realizing what this software can do, what these AI agents can do, how quickly they're able to create.
No, the meltdown is because people see that it was overhyped for multiple years. It is nowhere close to any of the promises that were made. That was pretty high-pitched. And they're still pushing the goalposts forward. So the numbers, they're not adding up at all for these companies. All the companies involved, it's not working. So that's why people are getting cold feet.
Stuff that replaces entire industries. I am about to unveil the thing that I've been building with it. It's built entirely with AI agents, with OpenClaw specifically. Watching them build out the entire thing was kind of nuts. Because I gave them the big idea, they came up with the entire build out, what technology to use. I set them up on GitHub, so they're pushing various updates to GitHub, then they're deploying it on Versal. I know very little about actually how to do all the technical things.
And this is worrisome, right? This is how you get people setting up, misconfiguring these agents and effectively giving access to their shit. I saw before the stream, I saw on Reddit somebody on the vibe coding subreddit saying that, oh shit, they launched a new app and they had misconfigured, where was it? They were out of clients and they had hard coded into the program access to the database through local host, and it was not connecting, and he was wondering why it wasn't connecting. And because he was at a client's doing a showcase, I guess at that time he didn't know that it was pointed to local host. And so to fix the issue, he opened up some ports over the internet, and he forgot to close them afterward. When he got home, he didn't understand. He couldn't get in. He looked into things because he had not changed the default password for the database, and he he had very poor configurations. He had a ransomware encrypt his whole database. And so he was like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's not too bad because it was just the one client. We didn't have any information yet in it. It wasn't too bad. Can you imagine how many people are doing that right now with OpenClaw and all of these products that are coming out? They don't know shit, and they're just trying to make it happen. It is dangerous. It is bad. So to me, it's pretty worrisome that you would proudly say that you don't know how to do shit and you have them do it, and you feel confident enough to let other people pay to use your dangerous shit. I saw a new weather app. This is a crazy world. It's a crazy time to be there, to be fucking with tech.
I just sit there on my phone texting it, and this thing builds out entire software suites that are needed to bring that vision to reality. There was a very good post on X by Matt Schumer. It's sitting at 80 million views now, absolutely blowing up, and congratulations to him. That's absolutely staggering numbers. It's called Something Big is Happening. And what I'm talking about today overlaps with what he's talking about, but I think his letter and why it's going to be so impactful, I think it's meant for kind of like the normies of the rest of the world, the people that are just beginning to realize that something's coming. What I'm going to be talking about goes in a slightly different direction.
I fucking hate that word, normies. You know what normies? Nobody sees what's coming with it, because there isn't anything coming with it. There's nothing. Real people have a real preoccupation. This, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. It doesn't have, well, it has impact on their life, but there's no benefits now or coming. So yeah, people are worried about other things right now.
But I just wanted to point out two things from that article that really jumped out at me. The first thing that he said is, I know this is real because it happened to me first. Here's the thing that nobody outside of tech quite understands yet. The reason so many people in the industry are sounding the alarm right now is because this already happened to us. We're not making predictions. We're telling you what already occurred in our own jobs and warning you that you are next. I've been testing these AI models since 2023, I think. And in the beginning, they were simple word puzzles, riddles. Write this thing out for me. And often they would fail. Then over time, simple word prompts or riddles,
Yeah, throwing more compute at it so they know that with more computing power, they are able to produce something that does things. But because of the concept that it's based on, because of how it works, it is not intelligent. There's no intelligence. Even if they throw all the compute, even if they build the data centers on the moon, even if they were to garner the whole energy of the sun, that would not make it intelligent because of the concept, because of how it works. You wouldn't say that your computer is intelligent, right? But whenever it turns on, it processes data and it creates a graphical output for you to interact with, and it interacts with physical peripherals that you can touch. It interprets what it does, right? So is that intelligent? I don't think so.
just weren't as interesting of tests, and we transitioned to coding. Can't this thing create a little snake game? Eventually it could, but each new model release kind of got better and better, and I had to really step up my testing of it higher and higher. But in this last week, with the release of GPT 5.3 Codex and Opus 4.6, this idea of prompting it and then seeing what it comes up with as a test of its abilities, it doesn't even make sense anymore. Because really, the real test is when you hook it up to something like OpenClaw, for example, and then give it a big idea and then tell it to just...
How is that? How is... why would that be the real test? How is that the real test? I mean, you are unable to produce something that will test it, right? And even the tests, the benchmarks, they're man-made. It's all man-made. Everything has mistakes. People make mistakes. It's all full of mistakes everywhere, at every single point. And if it's not now, it's then. It's going to come. It's there. We make mistakes and we make that shit.
Run through the night building that idea out and deploying it. Then you wake up in the morning and you look at the output, and the output is what used to be a business.
Okay, but there was this whole situation where you woke up in the morning and it stopped after a while, right? It was not autonomous. I pointed that shit out. I've seen that shit online as well. People, they just run it and it stops, right? But now you have cron, quote unquote, cron jobs where at a specific frequency you have to poke it and have it check its list and check its context and, keep on. But it's not autonomous. It did not wake up on its own. It did not keep working on its own. It will lose context mid-task and just stop. And because you put in place all these strategies to manage the context and have it, on a specific forward path, because you put all these stuff on around it, all these rules and conditions and actions to take based on that, then you present it as it being autonomous and doing shit through the night as if it was a company. It doesn't make a lot of sense, man.
Company. So the test is no longer can it provide a chunk of code or can it troubleshoot this one isolated detail. The test is now
Yes, because it's been trained to do that. It's just because you are unable to test it. But if you understand how it works, you know that there's no intelligence here. You have to calm down a little bit. People that are vibe coding this shit, that have no technical knowledge, they are faced with the hurdles. They are stuck at it not being autonomous and being magical and being intelligent. So whatever Wes is presenting right now is his own personal experience as somebody who has lots of technical knowledge, and he's, doing this for a couple of years now, right? This is not the general experience at this moment.
can it build a business overnight, or at least kind of like the tech side of it, the code on which it runs, the ability to scale up depending on how many users use it, all the functionality, all of the back end, front end, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, it's able to do that with no human kind of driving it, at least not in any technical.
You see? So that's not true. That's not the case. They have to put it in, and everybody has their own quote unquote framework for it, right? They all have their different approaches. You got people having their source files, their to do files, their history files, memory files, whatever the fuck. These are gimmicks to make it behave in certain ways. But if I manage a computer, I can schedule a task on it to run based on conditions, right? I could create a whole bunch of interactive, quote unquote, interactive behavior with no AI intelligence, and there are actions taken depending on certain things, but that would not make it intelligent, right?
Way. I am not needed for any technical aspects of the build out period. By the way, as it's building everything out, I've asked it to keep a log of everything so that on that website you're able to see what it's building, not in real time, but at the end of every day, there's a new log. So I tell it the idea, it gets the idea. It gets the idea better than me in some ways, because later when I actually suggest something, it corrects me. I told it, oh, should we use WordPress for this? And it's like, no, dude, that's a horrible idea. I didn't say that I was super nice about it, but it told me why that was a stupid idea and why we're supposed to use something else instead. And it's like, this fits your idea a lot better. And I was like, no, of course it does. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I even suggested it.
But he said that he did not have the technical knowledge to do that, right? So why would you fall back on something that is not 100% credible? I find it just a little bit odd.
It's right. So it like understood my idea better, or at least it understood how to execute it more closely to the idea that I had. That how I would have done it, what I would have done would have been a mistake, or at least it wasn't the most optimal version of it. So it figured out the top 10 core features. It figured out a data mode strategy. It figured out the design and direction, dark mode, Bloomberg terminal, static data dense. It deployed automation, Vercel API deploy, mobile responsiveness, auto update cron, feed refreshes every 30 minutes autonomously. Later, we've also upgraded to less than 30 minutes, much faster. OG image, favicon, about page for a 4-page, Google Trends integration for story boosting, RSS output at xfeed.xml, lms.txt for AI chatbot discovery, search, keyboard shortcuts, source filter tabs, complete feed aggregators, RSS. We have Reddit JSON, archive API, story clustering engine with multi-signal storing based on engagement, recency, source diversity. Now you might be confused about some of these things. Maybe you're not sure what those things mean. It doesn't matter. I didn't have to either. These weren't my ideas. This was my execution. Do you want to know what I did? Here, the AI agent actually logged it. This was February 8th, 2026. Technically day 0 because like I had this idea late on that Sunday, and before going to sleep, I told it to build it out. So it called it the build begins, night sprint. So between 9:50 p.m. and 1:30 a.m., the AI agent builds the entire platform from scratch. 28 commits in under 4 hours. First deployed to Vercel, goes live. Do you want to know what I was doing between 9:50 p.m. and 1:30 a.m.? I was asleep. I told it what to do. I kind of said, okay, like,
so it's not autonomous, right? Got told what to do first of all. So set of instructions.
Do you have a rough plan outlines? Like, yeah, we're going to be kind of doing this. I'm like, okay, make it so, number one. And then I went to sleep. In the morning, the thing was live and functional and looking good, actually working. And here it says 1:30 a.m., 28 commits pushed. Site is live at and don't.
Why did it stop at 1:30? Let's see how it's broken down. I hope we can see each start and stop time.
Worry, I'm going to be showing the whole thing very soon. So if you want to see what it is and all that stuff, that's coming. Make sure
Auto update cron feed refreshes every 30 minutes autonomously.
subscribe because this is going to be big, I think. So notice here it's saying we're using a Gemini 2.5 Pro for deep dive coverage articles with research grounding. Actually, I've bumped it up to 3.0 Pro. And then cost, $0 infrastructure, free tier everything, 0 API keys for data collection. So that's going to have to be updated a little bit because we've used some API, like the Gemini thing, it costs a little bit. And the Vercel thing, as soon as this thing starts making money, I do have to upgrade it because the hobby tier is for non-commercial projects. Currently, this is a non-commercial, but I mean, if this makes any amount of money, then I do have to bump it up. So you get what I'm saying here, right? I had an idea for something that I wanted to create. In the past, this would have been, you would have to hire engineers, weeks or months of build out, testing, planning, right? But it does all that, comes up with the planning, with the design, a rough outline, figures out all the tech pieces that it needs to pull in, figures out the user flow design, right? Builds it all, figures out, you know, pushes the commits to GitHub, if it's hosting it on Vercel or whatever. It knows what Vercel is. Vercel, by the way, is a fairly big company. A lot of very well-known big companies run on it. I think that Netflix, Stripe is on there. Like, there's a lot of things that run on there. It's very fast. It's great for SEO. It's probably a lot more, like, you need to be a lot more tech savvy to use it. So most people, like, if you're a human, you don't get too far into the weeds, you'd use something like WordPress. But if you have the tech skills and you need to make sure that this thing can scale and it's super fast, etc., then you'd use something like Vercel. And that's why I suggested to my chatbots earlier, I was like, shouldn't we use WordPress for this? It's like, no, we're going to use Vercel. Just
I'm an HR manager, and I'm stressed.
Right.
I tried meditating, levitating, touching grass, smashing glass, downward dog, kissing a frog, and nothing worked. I'm pretty.
just enough out of you, enough ideas out of you. Just be quiet. Again, I didn't say that. That's how I felt a little bit. I'm like, okay, you know what you're doing a lot better than I. And then it built it, and then it tested it, and then it, you know, made sure that everything was flowing smoothly. And then I made sure it was being updated, and it set more things that it could be doing to kind of progress the project forward.
He set more things that it could be doing, right? Where's the autonomy there?
And it's been running since, and it's been running very well. I keep suggesting new features, and it keeps updating those features. So again, what used to be hiring engineers and weeks or months of work now is a few texts back and forth, and then you take a nap.
I wonder if you pass that shit to Burp Suite, if it's going to find any web vulnerabilities.
App, and you wake up, and it's done. in that article that Matt Schumer wrote, at some point he was like, I'm not exaggerating, right? It's funny because like I feel like how what I'm saying is landing with you greatly depends on
whatever it is, whatever it is. I don't think he mentioned. I'm not sure he mentioned what it does, but whatever it is, if your coding model doesn't foresee specific exploit or what they call like a website sanitation, you're going to be vulnerable to specific attacks. Well, depending on how poorly it's been done, either the code of the website or where it's hosted physically, there's a lot of attack vectors where the systems could be compromised. So he's talking about making money, right? If you're going to make money, is it going to be from your users or from advertisement? If it's from your users, you're going to keep some information or you're going to integrate payment services or something like that. So you start stacking up services and things to do, and when they interact with each other, then you have more attack vectors. You have a bigger attack surface that could make you vulnerable. So if you're vibe coding and you have no experience in uh, secure web development and all these things, you are it, I would think it is irresponsible to start you know publicly providing the product that you produce that way. Unfortunately, since this is the AI gold rush right now, there are people doing it already. There are people that will be doing it in the future. So hopefully you're careful with what you get into your phone or what you access, because this is going to be very bad. I really, really would hope that there would be precedents set for these companies or these people to be responsible for the impact that it causes. But since we've already seen all these big ass companies just lose your information or be susceptible to uh, any types of hacker attacks, and they haven't done anything except just say that we contacted our users to let them know. It most likely will never happen, but this, you really got to be careful. I'm very, very disappointed in this type of behavior.
whether or not you've done this for yourself. Because if you've done all this, if you've experienced all of this, you're like, yeah, no, I know, I get it. It's insane. And if you haven't done it, you're wondering probably how much of this is true. Like, am I exaggerating? Am I making some of this stuff up? Like, am I giving you like the full picture? And what I'm trying to kind of show you in this video is that you might dismiss one person saying it, you might dismiss two people saying it, but there's an overwhelming amount.
Okay, here overwhelming, you gotta keep it with a grain of salt. Everybody on social networks right now, they live in their own echo chambers. You don't have focal point, right? There's no everybody's attention, or rarely it does happen now. Everything is so fragmented. So you might feel that this is viral or it's overwhelming, that it's everywhere. It's not the case. It's just not the case. Most likely you are stuck in just a little fragment of the internet where everybody's talking about that, but it's not the reality around yourself. It is just not. We see it everywhere. So just a grain of salt here.
Of people saying it now. Later in the article, Matt Schumer says, I've always been early to adopt AI tools, but the last few months have shocked me. These new AI models aren't incremental improvements. This is
All right, real quick. Are these new AI models? What's it called? GPT-3 Codex? GPT 5.3 Codex. Is GPT 5.3? Where am I? And new models. New OpenAI model. Because I don't think they've retrained ChatGPT for it. All right. However, well, because I made a mistake in what I looked up, OpenAI has introduced new iterations in the GPT-5 family, most notably GPT 5.3 Codex. So, all right, this is the same type of obfuscation that you get with, marketing terms such as AGI versus AI and all these things. It's not a new model because they have not trained a new model. They haven't done that part, right? They've taken what they already had, so the quote unquote GPT-5 family, they had this train model, and they just added all those different gimmicks and those different tricks to make it do something new, right? People have complained that Claude Opus 4.6 uses much more tokens than 4.5, but inherently, Anthropic has not trained a new model. They're adding context or whatever the gimmicks that they're doing right now, and it made it so that it raised the token consumption. But does that make it makes it behave better in certain aspects because it has more context, but because of that it has more tokens to be used whenever you prompt it, and that's why I think it has like one of the highest token consumption of all the quote unquote frontier models. But these are not new models, they're the same model with new gimmicks.
is a different thing entirely. More and more people that have been doing this for a while and following the progress and kind of staying up to date on everything, a lot of them are changing their tune. It started right around initially November of 2025, so 4 months ago thereabouts, with these new, like the Opus 4.5 model, etc. people out of Google and XAI and Anthropic and a lot of other places were going, whoa, this is different. There's some sort of a shift that's occurring. If you asked me 4 months ago if these LMs could build a fully functional business, I would have said, no, we're not there yet. There's tons of stuff that's missing.
Yeah, fully functional business. I mean, people with lots of money aren't able to build fully functional businesses. So I highly doubt that it's the case here, you know? Fully functional. A business is not just a fucking point of sale, right? You have a lot of stuff going on with a business. This is highly exaggerating the capabilities of what this is able to do.
It's still not capable of doing these long horizon tasks. You asked me that same question today, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know, because it feels like we're...
Yeah, you don't know, but Microsoft just pushed the goalpost again for a year and a half. In a year and a half, okay, in 2027, in let's say September, okay, everybody's gonna be out of a job, right? Put that in your calendar and remind me then. What most likely is going to happen is either the economy is going to be crashed, but AI is not coming for your job.
Either there or within a very short distance away. It also really depends on what you mean by fully autonomously, because right now I'm texting them and providing some guidance, sometimes intelligently and sometimes it has...
Okay, so you see, he just clarified that, but whenever he fucking talks about it, he always say that it's autonomous, but he always has to give them instructions. So it doesn't make sense. You see, now he's able to have a nuanced take on this thing, but people are just dead set on overhyping what it's able to do and what it does, that they just talk like that all the fucking time, but it's not right. It's not true.
To explain to me why that's not the best idea. So you might say, oh, well, that's not autonomously. If you're texting it, you still have to kind of prod it. But I don't know. It feels like it's really doing all of the work.
Yeah, because you set him up with all these frameworks and all these gimmicks to have it behave it that way. But if I were to do the same thing on my computer, I put rules and conditions, and it's basic computing. It doesn't mean that it's intelligent. Jeez.
It's carrying everything on its back, and just like the amount of cognitive labor that I'm doing for that project feels very, very low. Not only that, but really I am the bottleneck. This thing could...
I mean, we just saw Dylan's video saying that people have to do more of the work because they have to reanalyze everything to make sure that it is proper. So here, I guess there's a distinction between having enterprise environment versus personal environment. Wes here is going all in with things that he himself says that he doesn't quite grasp. So why would you trust this thing to do that? Would you trust that for it to do your taxes? I don't know, man. If you know that there's going to be hallucinations, if I mean, a couple of videos ago from Wes, he mentioned that it was dead set on saying that the answer was 48. It knew that it was supposed to be 24, but the only output it was able to do was 48. You wouldn't trust it with numbers, right? So why would you trust it for things that you don't understand? That's where I don't understand where the disconnect is. You know it's unable to do certain things, but you let it go wild for things that you don't know that, you know, it's unable to do. Did you add in your prompt make secure? Is it going to make it secure?
Run a lot faster if it was sort of unleashed even further, if it had some sort of a state that it was trying to pursue. In that interview with Ilya Sutskever, he was saying how this might be one of the things that is missing from these models, because us as humans, we tend to chase some state. We tend to imagine that, oh, if I get that promotion, or if I build that business, or if I, get a six-pack, we tend to envision that state and think that's going to make us happy, and then we sort of chase that state. And that's kind of what allows us to agentically move forward towards that state, even if we don't know the exact path. So we don't have something like that for these AI agents. They're kind of like pretty zen and chill. They don't have this drive. You have to push them. But all of that capability.
Oh my god, that is such a fucking stretch. Okay, personifying the models like that, it is so crazy. So you lend human properties to their shortcomings, and that makes it okay? I don't get it. If you were working, would you be okay for your coworker to have to be poked every 30 minutes just for him to start over again, to keep working? That does not make sense at all. This is this is why people are confused with the abilities that it has.
To take those next steps and pursue medium length tasks, medium horizon tasks. It's all there. We've just turned that corner. And look, this thing isn't going back in the box. This thing isn't slowing down. I posted this clip. So this was Dario Amodei of Anthropic, New York Times, this interview that he did. And what he was saying is pretty interesting. So I'll kind of give you a highlight. This is kind of blowing up right now. So thank you to anybody that interacted with it. But the point of that clip was that he was saying that right now, more and more of the code production is automated, but you still require a human in the loop. So for example, I think you'll get a kick out of this. I really shouldn't be sharing this, but for you, I'll share it for you. I told it, hey, there's a new thing by Dario Amodei. Pick out some cool clips. So I went, all right, cool, totally. Here's the top 10 clips that I think are going to be really good, right? So number one clip, we are near the end of the exponential, 10 out of 10. So it thinks that was like the best one. That's the clip that, if everything goes correctly, you should see at the very beginning of this video. Did you like it? Because this little AI agent bot thought it was 10 out of 10, and so did I. So figured that out. I said, yeah, give me that clip. So it clipped it. It's about a minute long. It downloaded, and yeah.
Tackling your security concerns starts with a prompt. With Sola AI, you get answers to the security questions you really care about.
Fuck off.
Now I have it. And then after that, it went to work on improving sort of like the script that we're writing to get those videos and cut the clips, etc. And figure out there were some ways to improve it. And currently, as I'm recording this, that's what it's working on. Here's the thing. This morning I was like on a walk and I saw Peter Diamandis, one of his recent podcast episodes, and I didn't have time to watch the entire thing, but during an intro they had those little clips of them talking, and Peter was saying, when do you think we're going to get to the point where we're going to have a fully AI run business that generates $1 billion a year in revenue? And one of his co-hosts was like, you know what, he wouldn't be that shocked if that already happened, if that's already something that's alive, that's already out there. Now, I wouldn't bet money on that quite yet, that it's something fully autonomous is at $1 billion right now. Although maybe crazier things have happened. But I do think that right now with OpenClaw, this autonomous AI agent, and
a fully autonomous company, when right now the frontier models aren't able to be fully autonomous, how would that work?
The brand new models that have been released from, OpenAI, etc. We have Opus 4.6, currently my favorite model to act as the brain of OpenClaw, and Opus 4.5 was excellent as well. But the point is, hundreds of thousands of developers have signed up for that thing, and they're all using it and cranking stuff out. And I know what I was able to build with my limited time, with my limited knowledge, and kind of a limited bandwidth, because I'm really focused on doing this channel and everything around this channel, so I can't really, take 10 hours a day to build something out. But I would bet money that somewhere out there right now, there's probably more than one, probably a lot, thousands of people that have some idea that OpenClaw is building for them, right now or while they sleep. And
But if they're all using the same models, well, yeah, their OpenClaw agents are supposed to have personalities and they have different skills. But if they use the same skills and they're connected to the same models, wouldn't make it so that if they're asked to produce the same thing, they're going to produce the same output as well from one person to another? Because you got the same model, you got the same skills, and the big thing is, do a weather app, right? Or do this. This is the goal that they want to achieve, right? They want to put the less effort possible and have the highest output possible. So build me a blog website, something like that, whatever, right? So if you have multiple people prompting it with the same very basic, very short prompts, it feels to me like they are bound to have the same outputs, right? That's just my guess. So even if there's 1,000 bajillions people doing these apps or developing stuff, is it all going to be quality and is it all going to be different? I don't think so.
Whatever that project is, I think is going to financially completely change their lives. And ideally, it also provides a lot of value to people. And with code, with software, I think that is true, because in order to make money from having a website, you have to provide some value. If you make an app, it has to be entertaining or useful or something. There's this idea in, if you print money, if a country prints money, there's this idea of either it's papillon effect or papillon, depending on how you pronounce it. The idea is when you print.
It doesn't depend how you pronounce it. This is a French word. It is papillon.
Money, the people that get that money first have the biggest sort of advantage, right? Because the more money you print, slowly that diffuses, there's inflation, and everything costs more. But if you're the first person to get your hands on that money, you're still using that new, freshly printed money to buy stuff kind of at the old prices before the rest of the economy has the time to calibrate. I think that's exactly what's happening right now with software. Like if you think about code as currency, code as money. Code used to be expensive. Not that long ago, if you wanted to create a piece of software, you had to type out the code, letter by letter, word by word, like an animal, like a wild animal. You sat there typing the code out. And in order to be able to have code that actually works, I mean, you had to be pretty smart, pretty educated. You had to be skilled. You had to know what you were doing. And so code, that output, it was expensive to produce a working piece of code. That cost money, that cost time, etc. Then, like just now, within the last few months, or maybe even within the last few weeks, depending on how you're looking at it, whether you're looking at, Opus 4.5 or whether the OpenClaw, that first kind of kick-off point that started going off, like the world just changed. And now anybody who can figure out how to use
world
this
is a
thing
big
can
word.
build pretty insane SaaS applications, websites, apps,
Full of holes,
etc. And the world is not yet sort of aware of what's happening, meaning that it hasn't been repriced yet.
How can the whole world be doing it and also not be aware that it's happening? Do you see the fucking split here?
So if you build some apps or software code or SaaS or whatever that replaces existing huge businesses that charge a monthly fee, Adobe comes to mind. Somebody replaced Photoshop at photopea.com completely.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Well, this is this is happening, right? This is actually happening. But would you trust somebody to write that, install it on your computer? It is going to have some. Are there are so many potential issues with it. Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't think these are good ideas.
They just kind of a clone of Photoshop. But Adobe landed some hot water because they, if you sign up for the monthly membership, they also say, oh, it's like a yearly membership. So if you cancel early, there's a early termination fee. Like, wow, they made so many people mad, including myself, because that was like a low, dirty, dirty move. And here's the thing, like, for example, I use several things in their Creative Cloud, their suite of software. The reality is, like, if you're using Photoshop, you're probably not using 100% of the features of Photoshop. Depending on what you're doing, you're probably using just a few percentage points of everything that they have available. Because Photoshop has tons of stuff you can do. Chances are you're not using everything. Chances are you're just using a small pocket and you're reusing a lot of skills, over and over. But in the past, how the sort of the software economy worked, that if a big company could create something like Photoshop that is in general good for everyone that's doing graphic design, then that company would win over time, accumulate more and more users, etc. But those users are not one and the same. One is a photographer that needs it for this thing. One is a YouTube person that needs it for this thing. One is whatever. There's a million different sort of clusters of people using kind of their own separate things. Guess what's going to happen now? I think it's pretty clear because we've seen what happened with internet and how that fragmented the entertainment industry. Because if you go back decades, right, there was the TV and there was 3 channels, and on channel 1 there was Bob, and on channel 2 there was Susan, right, and you had your choice between whatever they put in front of you. Then the internet happened, anybody could stream whatever they want to. Now everything's highly fragmented because you get to choose where you want to get your news from, where you want to get your entertainment from, etc. I think number one, we're going to see the exact same thing happening right now in software. Photoshop is going to get broken into a million kind of pieces, each for its own use case. And by the way, for a lot of this stuff, I think just being able to give that skill to your agent to execute on your behalf, that's going to be a part of it. But I don't think the entire world is going to immediately figure out how to use agents. So I think that transition time will take longer. But my point is, if you've ever wanted to build a business, if you've ever wanted to have some idea out there that you think is useful or that you're just interested in, number one, this might be like the best time in the history of the world to build it. It really could be in the history of the world the best time for that. And number two, and this is maybe a little bit more out there, but maybe these next few years, this might be the last time that you could build something like it. Because again, if you project kind of into the future, at some point you can imagine being able to say one sentence to your AI agent and then it creates the entire Adobe.
There you go. There you go, right? Isn't that exactly what I was saying? So if that is the goal and people use the same model, will they not get the same shit? The fuck?
Suite, if you wanted it to, and you might not even need it to because it can do everything that the Adobe Suite can do, but just do it for you, right? So right now, software is expensive. Kind of like the value of it is high, it's expensive. We have to pay a lot to create good software. But we're probably going to see this cascade as more and more is pushed out there, right? Sort of like inflation, right? Or I guess not inflation, but rather the supply is just blown up. So the cost.
Okay, so software is going to become cheaper, right? For senior developers, people who have enough experience to be able to produce the output that they say that it's able to produce. You're going to lose the junior developers because they will never be able to do that output. And whatever, you might get like a golden age of software production that's going to last however many decades. But since you're going to lose the historical ladder that used to exist, where you would get into an entry job and get gradually more experience and then get just a normal job and then eventually might get a senior job, you're going to lose that whole process, because why would companies keep paying employees when you could have just the one producing the output of 10? This is going to last for however long it's going to last, but it's going to all collapse on its own, because when all these geysers, these old geysers, they're going to leave, they won't be part of the workforce. Nobody's going to be able to replace them. And by that time, most likely, we're going to be forced or contained into a worldview where we always fall back to what these models say, because it's going to be treated as if it was the whole truth, but it's not. And so whenever it's going to collapse, it's just going to either fall apart, or we're going to be so far off in the wrong direction that it's going to be too late to come back. That's going to be so nice.
Drops. But I think in a number of years, I don't know when, that's going to get abstracted away. No one's going to interact with software anymore. Like in 5 years, 3 years, I don't know. Because the new kind of like layer will be AI agents. Like, why would you use Photoshop when you can just tell your AI agent what needs to be done? And the chances are, if it's your personal assistant that knows what you need, it probably has context on kind of like if I make thumbnails, at some point it's going to be able to make them better than I can, and it knows everything that I like and what works for my channel. Like, at some point, I will no longer use Photoshop myself. Like, clicking on things with a mouse, that's going to get archaic really, really fast. But there's this small window that I think is a huge opportunity. Now, Dario Amodei, in that clip that I was talking about earlier, he refers to that as kind of like the centaur moment. I'm not sure if that was his words, or that might have been the interviewer that suggested that terminology. The whole idea of a centaur, I think Ethan Malik was kind of like the first person to introduce it, as far as I know. And so, of course, a centaur is half man, half horse. And this is as opposed to a cyborg. So in the context of AI, a centaur is like the AI does something, and then you step in and you do something, and you hand it back and forth in order to complete the task. Whereas a cyborg is something where it's more like integrated, where it's like you can't tell where one ends and the other one begins. So here, for the purposes of software engineering, they're saying that Dario said,
if you have ever looked at a cyborg, you can literally tell exactly where one ends and where one begins. What the fuck do you mean? There's human parts and there's non-human parts. Come on, bro.
Saying that at some point, very, very soon, it will be fully automated. But what he's seeing right now is this window where human in the loop, so somebody that's watching the outputs of the AI agent and just going back and forth with it, they're calling it kind of like that centaur age, that this is where that's going to be called for quite a bit. And I'm experiencing that myself, because in order to drive the creation of that website that I'm building forward, yes, the AI agents are building everything for me, but I do have to get in there and be like, okay, do this next, do this next. So I'm kind of like
So there's no autonomy, okay? This is specifically wording that contradicts any claims of autonomy. Please understand that.
Top level leadership telling you what to do, and all the work is done entirely by the AI agents. So that's like the perfect kind of description of what a centaur is. But what Dario's saying is, at some point that will go away and it'll become 100% automated. So he's saying right now, prepare for the age of the centaur, but that age might not last that long, right? We don't know how long that's going to be around for. So if you want to build something, build it now, I guess is my point. Because we don't know what's coming next. That's what the singularity means. That's what the singularity looks like. It's a point at which it's extremely difficult to understand or predict what's going to happen next. And like I said a few weeks ago, I think we are entering it, or entered just the edges of it. We're sliding into the singularity, because me, for one, I'm not sure what happens at that point when we reach full automation. What happens to AI development if it's fully...
If you get full automation, you're going to get people displaced. You're going to have job losses. You're going to have a lot of issues. So even if you get UBI, even if you get whatever, It's not gonna look good. All right, guys. So I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna go eat, and I'll be back in, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes to an hour to play video games. Thank you for watching.